In 5 years, we don't say we are perfect. There are still rooms for improvement, but we have not been assisted so far. All we have seen is criticism, isolation, ostracism, and cruise missiles.
Where are the rooms for improvement? Let's consider that for a second.
All we have said that please, if you have concerns, don't send us cruise missiles. Please talk to us. We have not been recognized so far. We have not been assisted so far. We have been under sanction. So what do you expect from a country which you don't consider as a government, which you just hit with cruise missiles? And we are still very patient.
The cruise missiles were not directed at the Taliban. The cruise missiles were directed at bin Laden.
Whatever. Did they kill bin Laden? And what is the justification for killing a man without even giving him a fair trial? Did they kill him or did they kill him?
I think they're very prepared to give him a fair trial if he would like to present himself for trial.
We were not asked that he was needed. And how do we know that he is?
May I interject myself here?
Please.
I think this illustrates the problem. You see, Mr. Hashmi lives in Afghanistan. His primary concern is not protecting U.S. embassies and U.S. destroyers. Now, of course, I don't agree with him, and I don't agree with the policies of the Taliban. But people in Afghanistan are concerned about the problems of Afghanistan. You are pressing him to be concerned about the problem of the United States, which is that bin Laden poses a threat to us. Now, if we want to have relations with people in Afghanistan, we have to recognize their problems, which actually are a lot bigger than ours. And we have much more capacity to help them with their problems than they have to help us with ours.
Okay. Let me take that point. It's a very good point. Remember, though, when I asked him why he was in the United States, he said to talk with, he make some speeches at universities and also talk to people in the State Department about a series of issues of concern to them, including bin Laden. I mean, that was clear from my first question. And so, therefore, bin Laden becomes part of the conversation. And I assume he's asking for evidence, and the United States is prepared to tell you why they think he is, in fact, a terrorist. Moving beyond that, though, what is it you want the government to do other than not to send over cruise missiles or whatever else, those issues that you laid? What is it? What would have been an appropriate response for you from the United States about Taliban problems?
Well, we would first like the United States not to recognize a rebel group in Afghanistan first.
Not to support Massoud or what?
Exactly. We have not been recognized so far. The United Nations seat is given to them, and we are under sanctions. So we have said that they have to engage with us. They have to consider us as a government and then talk to us about their concerns. We are humans. We will understand the problems, and we cannot be dictated. We cannot bargain on our independence. We have said, okay, if anybody is found guilty of killing civilians, we will punish him, and in our constitution, anybody found guilty of killing civilians will face capital punishment. So could you please help us and give us some sort of assistance, some sort of evidence that could lead to bin Laden's involvement in those attacks?
Mr. Rubin may think this is silly, but let me just bear with me 1 second. If there was evidence that Mr. bin Laden had something to do with the killing of someone because he, through a series of chain of command, influenced terrorism that killed children, you would put him on trial for life. Is that right?
We did put him on trial for 45 days. We asked the United States, Kenya, and Tanzania to give us some sort of evidence. Nobody did give us. And now we have come to a decision that maybe the United States is looking for a boogeyman always. Because if they really have concerns from bin Laden, they have to talk to us. We have a full-time job reconstructing our country. We don't want foreign problems for us. But we have not been talked to. All is that we have seen is we are being bullied.
Well, I don't think the Taliban are serious about this question of whether they have evidence against bin Laden or not. He is their ally and supporter, though it is true he did not come to Afghanistan to stay with the Taliban, and the Taliban did not bring him to Afghanistan. At the same time,
he went looking for a safe haven.
Yeah, and when he went back to Afghanistan from Sudan in 1996, he did not go to an area which was controlled by the Taliban initially. He went to an area that was controlled by people who are now allied with Massoud, namely the people who were in Jalalabad, and later he became linked to the Taliban. But I think the point is the Taliban have been imposed. I didn't say that the Pakistani ISI created the Taliban. They did not. but the Pakistani government made the Taliban into a military power. They recruited thousands of Pakistani students to fight along with them. They have given them military advisors. They give them full political support, and several Western intelligence agencies have also told me that they believe there have been Pakistani regular troops fighting with the Taliban in key areas. The point is not to rule the Taliban out of Afghanistan. They're a part of Afghanistan, like Massoud is part of Afghanistan, and like the vast majority of the Afghan people who are neither Taliban nor supporters of Massoud. But the point is that Pakistan, which is the real source of the problem in a way, should not be trying to impose a government of its liking on Afghanistan. That prevents the dialogue that is necessary within Afghanistan among the various parts of the Afghan people. It is also true that Iran, Russia, and other states are, I would say, primarily reacting to Pakistan's policy in Afghanistan by supporting the other side.
And the dynamic of the relationship between the United States and Pakistan has considerably changed from what it was, say, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yes, and I hope that the Taliban and also their political advisors in Pakistan understand that. They may think that because the Republicans are back in power, they can restore the friendly relations that they had in the 1980s when they were fighting communism together. But that definitely is not the case, because this administration is going to take a tougher line on terrorism, I believe, than did the Clinton administration.
And what do you think that might mean? How will that manifest itself, that toughness?
Well, I think it means that we are much less likely to consider various policies that I think would be much more helpful, which is to say seriously engaging not just with the Taliban, but with other Afghan forces as well, but also with the Taliban, without recognizing them as a government, over the issues of the drought, of the need for reconstruction, of the need for them to have friendly relations with all the countries around there, and to work with other donor countries to put some serious money on the table, not to give it unconditionally when very important conditions haven't been met, both about terrorism and also about the equality of women, but to show that there is a serious willingness to address the real problems of Afghanistan. I think we should criticize and we should make demands about these things, but we shouldn't only do that. We should recognize there are vast human problems that are partly of our making, and we have a responsibility and also an interest to address them.
Our making because we were a player in the Civil War, because we came to on the side of the forces fighting the Russians?
That was the right thing to do.
That's what I thought.
But
so
the way
why is the problem our making? And because we supported the rebels?
There were different ways of doing that, and there were different rebel groups. We subcontracted our policy to Pakistan. We did not pay any attention to what a future government of Afghanistan might be like, because we thought the Soviet Union would never withdraw. So we supported the most extreme groups. We also created this fragmentation that Mr. Hashmi spoke about by giving these weapons not just to 7 different parties, but to anyone who came and asked for weapons and said they were fighting the Soviet Union. So you had a huge spread of criminality, of smuggling, of killing, of theft. So we made it almost impossible. And when people from the old royal regime in Afghanistan tried to form a common political front, Pakistan stopped them from doing that because of their political differences with the old royal government, and we supported Pakistan in doing that. So while we were right to support the resistance, the way we did that contributed to the policy, to the problems that Afghanistan has today. And then, after the Soviet Union withdrew and collapsed, we walked away from it, and we gave some humanitarian aid, but the quantity was pitiful compared to the huge amounts of money we had spent on the war, and it continues to be.
Mr. Hashimi, do you think, explain to us and to this audience why it was necessary to change the policy of the Taliban and destroy the Buddhist statues?
Well, we have said that the problems in Afghanistan are not our creations, and we have been saying this again and again. And if we were to destroy those statues, why didn't we destroy them 3 years ago? So the problem is so funny for us. This is not that serious problem in Afghanistan as it is for you. Your government is killing people in Afghanistan, killing innocent children. You don't see them by the economic sanctions. 700 children died of malnutrition a month ago. So it is so funny for us that if a country is destroying our future with economic sanctions, so how do they worry about our heritage?
Look, first, the sanctions against Afghanistan, some of which I don't support, are not economic sanctions. There is no trade sanction against Afghanistan. There's a sanction against the airline, which I think is mistaken. There's a sanction against arms supplies to the Taliban, which I think is a good thing, except that it's not being enforced or even monitored in any serious way. Those children did not die because of those sanctions.
Well, if we, sorry to intervene, if we can't fly outside and buy medicine, who suffers? If we can't go and sign contracts, we had a contract with Kazakhstan asking for 95,000 metric tons of wheat, and we shipped some of that, and because of the sanctions, it stopped. We had a contract with Bangladesh that we imported rice from them, and because of that, we can't do it anymore. So who suffers? Even if you can't say it is Taliban specific, it is ridiculous. Because if we can't go outside and ask people to invest in Afghanistan, of course the people suffer.
Well, I don't know about those contracts. The other sanctions in Afghanistan, which have had the biggest effect, are the Taliban sanctions against the areas of the country that are controlled by the opposition. And I should just add that, talking about killing people in Afghanistan, recently Taliban troops who retook an area of central Afghanistan massacred several hundred civilians. And the opposing side, in other cases, massacred several thousand Taliban prisoners. So there's lots of killing going on.
We have said that war is not a festival, and we are against war. We are making order out of that war zone, and we have done it to 95% of the country. The problems in Afghanistan is neither political nor ethnic. We don't say that it's ethnic, neither the opposition says this. You may think it's political, it is not. The problems in Afghanistan is the existence of arms. And we have said that anybody who has arms, we are against them. They have to give us their arms, or we will disarm them by force. And we have done it. There were many alliances, you know, Mr. Robin. In Kabul, there were many alliances. Then there were many governments. And then because of existence of arms with everybody, then they would fight again and destroy the whole country. So we have said that we have no problem with anybody being in the government, provided that they are disarmed. We cannot accept an armed opposition within our country.
Now, if I could say something about that, that is, I would say, a partial truth, and the part of it that I agree with is very important, and it's hard for people in this country to understand, which is the problem in Afghanistan has not been just who's going to be in control of the government. The problem in Afghanistan is that there was not any government. That is, the state collapsed, and all kinds of people had arms. So if someone was murdered, the only thing you could do was get some weapons yourself and try to kill the people who murdered the people in your family. Now, the Taliban have tried to address that problem in their way. If they had done just what Mr. Hashmi said, disarmed people, created order, and then, under those conditions, allowed the people of Afghanistan to choose their type of government, that would have been positive. Unfortunately, what they have done is they have disarmed people and imposed their own group as the ruling elite. Mullah Omar was elected by 1,200 Islamic scholars whom he invited to Kandahar himself. They consult only those people, a very narrow group of the country, and not the Afghan people as a whole.
Excuse me. You're right on this, but have you, in a state of war, in a state of 22 years of continuous war, where you have millions of landmines in your country, where you have a bad starvation because of the drought, where you have all these problems, where there's still foreign interference, where there is still some sort of war going on, how can you talk about election? Isn't it ridiculous?
I don't mean elections. This is a little too detailed. You can have shuras. There are various plans for doing it. I agree elections are not possible in a country with no administration. If I may say so, I think this illustrates that on the one hand, it is possible to have a serious discussion with some people in the Taliban. It is also true that there are other people in the Taliban, and that behind them, the fact that they know they have the 100% backing of Pakistan means that despite these discussions we can have, nothing is really going to move. So I would say...
No, but did you include Mullah Omar in that characterization?
I don't know Mullah Omar, and I don't want to say anything personal about Mullah Omar. My impression of Mullah Omar is that he has recently sided with the more extreme elements of the Taliban, but I am not an authority on Mullah Omar and his personal views. But I think what is most relevant is that those most extreme elements within the Taliban who are dominating them, and there have been a number of reports about that recently, understand that they have the full military, political, and financial backing of Pakistan, and therefore they don't have an incentive to take this kind of discussion that we are having and carry it to a conclusion.
Mr. Robin, the problems in Afghanistan is not because of lack of arms. The problems in Afghanistan is because of abundance of arms. We don't need arms. Don't say that Pakistan is giving us arms. They have a big problem with India. So For them, it's impossible to support us with arms. Our good relations with Pakistan does not mean that they support us with military supports or whatever. So all these things, and you said that there are people who are accusing us that there are maybe Pakistani regulars in our side.